Hi, my name's Dr. Thomas Lacher Jr. I'm the director of the Center for Coffee Research and Education. As part of this series of presentations and interactive sessions for the Jordan Institute's program on coffee, I wanted to present a little bit of a different angle on the whole coffee issue, and that's the relationship between coffee and protecting biodiversity, and spend a little bit of time talking about some of the work that I and one of my PhD students has been doing in Colombia. This is actually one of the regions where we're working in the background. This is the town of San Pedro, which is in the mountains, coastal mountain range of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in Colombia. It's the place where we've been working on a project trying to look at the relationship between coffee production and biodiversity. So I'm going to share my screen right now and pull up a talk. Okay, so first I want to just give a very, very brief presentation on the Center for Coffee Research and Education at Texas A&M University. It's one of the centers as part of the Borlaug Institute of International Agriculture. And the material in this presentation actually was provided by a number of people, actually primarily by the initial parts by Rodrigo Chavez, Taya Brown, and Dana Lewis, and then the part on Colombia was provided by me. So the Center for Coffee Research and Education has 4 different areas of emphasis. These are services, development, education, and research. We have a class which is taught on coffee quality and production. We're constantly seeking resources through a development program to finance a growing program in coffee at Texas A&M University. We provide services in terms of training courses for individuals interested in a variety of different aspects of the coffee service industry. And probably the most important component, the most expansive component, is our focus on research. And one of the things I wanted to emphasize about the research activities is that a significant proportion of everything that the center does is focused on sustainability. So we're interested in the development of resilient coffees of high quality and productivity. So these are related to maintaining access to the market as tastes and preferences for coffee change, and we need to deal with a variety of other factors which influence productivity of coffee and the farms and communities where we work. We are trying to get the coffee growers to adopt the most resistant varieties of coffee that are relevant for their region to help to maintain productivity. Providing these producers with adequate agroecological management in coffee growing areas, trying to form linkages among coffee communities so that different partners can benefit from the technology learned by other producers in the region, so trying to create these networks of producers. And then finally trying to develop new revenue generating options for these producers through the skills to establish certified nurseries and a variety of other secondary products that we're promoting as part of the coffee industry. So today I wanted to talk just very specifically about something that I work on. I'm primarily an ecologist. I'm not a horticulturist. I'm not really a specialist in agriculture. And we've been looking, myself and my PhD student Nicolette Roach have been looking at the relationship between coffee and biodiversity and climate change in the Andes, coastal Andean mountains of Colombia. This is the region. This is the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. This tallest peak you can see back here, snow-covered, reaches over 19,000 feet in elevation, rising from the Caribbean coast. And so it's the world's tallest coastal mountain range. And one of the most significant agricultural activities in this region is the production of coffee. And this region actually is becoming increasingly better well known for some high specialist coffees that are grown in high elevation shade coffees. Many of these plantations are also organic. One of the things about the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta is that it's also one of the world's most important sites for biodiversity, and was recently in a publication indicated as the world's single most important site for protecting endemic and threatened amphibians. These are species which occur in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta and nowhere else in the world. An incredibly diverse amphibian population, and has been the source of a number of different ecological and conservation studies. So our interest was working with local producers, trying to get a better handle on one particular aspect of their production, which can have potentially have a negative impact on amphibian populations. A lot of work has been done on coffee throughout the world, looking at how shade coffee habitat, because it has so much structural diversity, can improve the success and viability of a number of different species, including birds and bats and a variety of other different kinds of mammals and insects as well. But very little work has been done on amphibians, and amphibians are a much different situation. Of course, they can't fly, and they frequently utilize the substrate underneath the coffee plants, and in particular utilize riparian habitats. Those are habitats alongside rivers and streams that that flow through and adjacent to all of these coffee plantations in the region. One of the things that we discovered is that if we begin to look at the abundance of amphibian species as a function of a variety of different kind of habitat types, one of the things, the most notable things, is that in either coffee or pasture, two heavy manipulated land use activities, the abundance of amphibian species is much lower than it is in forested or forested or secondary forested habitats. And so we became initially concerned about the potential impacts of coffee on amphibian populations, because seemingly they're unable or able to utilize coffee habitat only in very, very, very small numbers. And so we were wondering what some of the things that could be done that would improve coffee habitat for amphibians. And this is particularly important because, as you can see, whoops, let's go back a slide. As you can see, if we look at the number of species of amphibians as you move from 800 meters in elevation to 3,700 meters in elevation, the peak, 13 species, occurs exactly in this coffee zone from 1,200 to about a little over 2,000 meters. And so this is impacting an area of ecological importance for amphibians. And so the idea was to see if we could work with coffee farmers and coffee communities to look at some ways in which they could reduce the impact that coffee agriculture has on amphibians. And probably the best initial target was looking at these streams that flow through the coffee plantations, because these streams provide an important breeding habitat for many species of amphibians. So we started the project in collaboration with Arizona State University and the National University in Mexico, and also the Federación Nacional de Cafeteros, which is the National Coffee Federation in Colombia, which assists coffee growing communities throughout the country, to look at ways in which we could enhance watershed health for both communities who utilize this water, coffee, which depends upon water for production, and conservation, particularly the conservation of amphibians. And so this project involves working in a number of different localities in Colombia, where we're gathering water quality data in streams to try and determine if any residues that run off of coffee plantations are being deposited in the streams. And so we're screening for nitrogen and phosphorus, as some of the basic water quality measures, but also some more sophisticated analyses looking at the potential for the deposition of things like heavy metals and a number of persistent pesticides that may be present in the streams as a consequence of runoff from the coffee plantations. In addition, we're working with local farmers to see ways in which we could improve the water quality that comes off of the production of coffee, in particular the coffee wash. And so there are large and small streams that flow through these areas. Many amphibians are dependent upon these habitats, and a number of producers have begun to establish these filter systems, which are basically a cascading series of large plastic buckets that help to progressively filter more and more and more contaminants and residues out of the water that comes off of the coffee wash before it eventually gets back into the streams. And so this is the process, how it works. The coffee is brought into this little shack. Inside this, below this shack, there's a device which dumps the coffee down into a machine which scrapes the cherry, the fruit, the red fruit off of the coffee, and then progressively washes the beans, which are eventually dried. Then this water off of the wash is dumped through a series of plastic pipes and through a series of a number of different plastic bins, all of which are filtering attempting to filter different aspects of organic material and other potential contaminants from the coffee. And you can see these cascading down the hills uh, and then eventually dumping into one of the last is a uh, biofiltration process where a surface area of sheets of plastic are placed in there to enhance the growth of bacteria, which help to break down some of the final contaminants that may be dumped into the streams. And then that's deposited in an earthen tank, basically where it's allowed then to filter down into the groundwater, and that eventually empties into the streams. So the idea is to take this material from the wash of the beans through these analyses, collaboration with the farmers, see if we can enhance the quality of water which goes into the streams, which is also used by local communities for consumption. So it can benefit both amphibians and people. And so our long-range objectives of this is to improve sustainability of the coffee production in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, enhance water quality for people, both people and biodiversity, improve human health, reduce the impacts of climate change, and maintain the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta as one of the world's most important sites for biodiversity and quality coffee. The most important thing we can do is to show that coffee, which is such an important crop economically for the communities, can be produced in a sustainable fashion, which also helps to maintain the quality of life of the people that live in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. So it's just a little brief presentation of a different aspect, a different angle that the center is taking on its coffee research, actually looking to enhance the production of coffee, deal with climate change issues in the Sierra Nevada by introducing new hybrids and a variety of other activities, but at the same time trying to maintain the quality of life of the people that live in those communities, and also the quality of life of all the biodiversity which occurs in this beautiful part of the world. So that's a little bit of a summary of one of the aspects of research being conducted by the Center for Coffee Research in Texas and Education at Texas A&M University.